Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today we have Samiksha and Shrishti with us, and in this video they are going to tell their experience about STEP internship. So yeah, both of them are from IGDTUW. So we'll start with Samiksha's introduction.
Yeah, so hello everyone. I am Samiksha. I am currently in my second year doing BTech in Information Technology as Muskandi told from IGGW. I will just mention my development tech stack, that is, I'm a Flutter developer and a Monstack web developer.
So, hello everyone, I am Srishti and I am also from IGD2 and I am also currently in my second year of engineering like Samiksha. And my branch is computer science and engineering with artificial intelligence. And I will also mention that I am currently exploring data science along with machine learning.
That is really great. Also, thank you to both of you for doing this. I wanted to make this video before the step thing closes, but never mind, it will help the students next year. So, can you start with telling me the application procedure? Like, what is the application procedure for a step intern is like, and like what was your strategy to fill it? We can start with Srishti.
Okay, so the first step is resume selection. So it is the first and most important step because if a resume is not selected, that we then we won't be able to give our interview. So in on-campus opportunity, first a resume gets selected, and then there are two rounds solely based on DSA. But in on off-campus, there are two additional telephonic screening round before the DSA round and after the resume selection.
So, as you mentioned, resume, and I think it plays a very important role for the selection. So, like, what were your strategies to make your resume stand out from the others?
Like, I'm a part of the Women Engineer Scholar program. So basically, they told us that you do have to have work experience column in your resume. That was the only reason that I the development side in my first year, and I bagged an internship for Flutter at a very early startup. So I basically worked for that in my work experience column. Then I was also, like I mentioned, I'm a part of WE program and also DES Assistant Educare Fellow 21. So both of them went into my achievement. So that is what made my resume, I guess, more attractive to them. Then I had a lot of projects, both in Flutter and web development. Yeah, and I also had some CP ratings, in competitive programming ratings. So this is all I did in my first year, and I guess that is what added to my resume.
The two programs that you mentioned, I think they play a very important role. And apart from that, your CGPA mattered or not? Because people say that, they select 9 pointers or something like
Okay, so yeah, I do have a 9 pointer, but since 30 students were selected after the resume selection,
Yeah.
so I know somebody from 8.86 who got selected. Yeah.
Yeah, I will also add that my CGPA is 8.8, so I am a 8 pointer. So I would mention that in resume, there was a disease ascent educator program in my resume as well. So that also played a important role in the selection. And I would say I also have some ratings and rankings in different course chef contests, and that would also play. And I have some projects based on machine learning. It is an attractive topic, right? Because
that.
most of the people don't pick that. So that also played a major role. And I am also a mentor at Sakhi initiative by IGD2W. So that also played a very big role in that.
Important because it shows what you do apart from what you're supposed to do. Yeah, and I think step intern, and also one more important thing, like people think that step intern is just for girls. Is it like that? Because I've seen like some boys post about step internship on LinkedIn.
So it is not for girls. It is basically for underrepresented group, that they prefer underrepresented group in like in the tech field. So basically, in tech field, we as a women are underrepresented. So they prefer women candidates, but it is not that they just take us. Like, I know people, as you mentioned. I know this boy who is in IIT Guwahati, and he was also selected for step intern.
When I've seen some LinkedIn posts, I was like, I'll keep them as a proof for people who say that it is just for girls. It is not only for girls. They do select boys. The number might vary, but yeah, they do select.
Yeah.
Apart from that, what are the eligibility criteria?
So I think the eligibility criteria is that we should be in our second year, and they select from fields related to computer science only for now. But I think they are starting to expanding in 2 or 3 more years and taking fields not related to computer science.
I guess
And
there's another program, hardware step internship too,
okay.
something along those lines. I'm not sure for other fields.
For this,
Yeah.
basically, CS or IT students are allowed. The electrical students are not allowed.
No,
No,
EC also.
yeah, they are allowed. EC is allowed.
EC also, but mechanical, I guess they are not allowed.
Mechanical and all is not allowed. Because I think for DCs, they have specifically mentioned that only CS and IT
Yeah.
students are allowed.
Yeah.
Electrical are not allowed. And also for the people who are watching this, if you want to know what DCS program is, I've also made a video on that. You can definitely check it out. I'll put the link somewhere around here. The second thing is that after the application procedure, you mentioned that what was the next step after the application?
So for off campus, there is a telephonic round. For us, there were direct two interview rounds.
Cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
both
So
were
can
eliminatory in nature.
can you tell us more about the telephonic round? Like, what is it about? Like, what is the duration? What all is asked? Is it technical, non-technical?
Yeah, so it what I have heard is a 15 to 20 minutes round. It basically they are basic questions on DSA like theory, like what is merge sort, what is quick sort. So it's basically along the technical grounds only, and it's a 15 to 20 minutes round. Yeah, there's no video call involved. They will call you and you will have to answer the question.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was purely technical round.
All rounds are technical, no HR round in step
No
interview process.
HR round. In telephonic round, as you mentioned that there is no video call or something. So what kind of technical questions do they ask?
Like I mentioned, the question basically theory question, as in explain merge sort. What is quick sort? What's the time complexity of this sorting algorithm? Just sorting algorithm coming in my mind. So it's along those lines only.
Yeah, basically theoretical questions, got it.
Yeah.
And those theory questions can go anywhere, like they can go to CS fundamentals as well and other things that you start.
No CS fundamentals, only DSA.
Only DS. Acha, they also have to keep in mind that you're still in your second year, right?
Yes,
The next step is the interview. The interview thing you both faced, right?
Yes,
yes.
So
yes.
there are two interviews, right?
Yeah.
So we'll take it one by one. So, Samiksha, you can start with your first interview experience.
Yeah, so each of the round is supposed to be 45 minutes long.
Hmm.
So yeah, I had my interview round at 9 a.m. or so. They basically have two questions in mind. Usually the second question is the follow-up question of the first question. So I was also asked the two questions and it was based on trees. So first question was based on binary trees and second was based on n-array trees. The level of the questions I felt was medium, like lead code medium, if I would can code lead code. Yeah, so it was lead code medium. And the interviewer was really helpful. Like I personally have never implemented an array tree, right? I know what an array tree is, but I've never coded it. So I did mention that I've never did it, but I would like to solve this question. So yeah, he was really helpful to me. And also you do get to ask like a question at the end of the interview apart from DSA. So yeah, so he was really, kind to answer that question. And we had a lot of chat along that question also apart from DS. So it was a very nice experience.
And no HR questions or nothing non-technical was asked, right? Like,
Yeah, no. You have to basically you are given a Google Doc sheet, and basically only you and the interviewer have access to that doc, and you basically have to code on that. So you have to make sure that, because unlike code editor, you don't have tabs and everything on Google Docs. So you have to make sure that if you want to make your code look beautiful, you have to add tabs there. So it adds how well can you code on Google Docs. So yeah, you should be able to like you should practice on, and yeah, you have to code on Google Docs, and then they say that give a dry run for this code, and then they ask for time complexity. This is how an interview goes.
and how
Yeah.
many questions were asked to you?
Yeah, so there was mainly two questions were asked, but the second question was a follow-up question. As I said, first was on binary trees and second was on n-array trees, just that it was changed from binary to n-array.
So my experience was also wonderful because as it was my first interview and it was really helpful. So interviewer was very helpful and kind. So first started with the introduction. We both introduced ourselves. Then he pasted a question on the Google Docs as Samiksha mentioned. We have to code on Google Docs, and she covered all the points regarding that how we should prepare for that. So like there were two questions asked from me, and they were not follow up questions. They were totally different from totally different topics. So they asked, and when I was stuck at any point, so he or she would encourage you to or even guide you, like giving hints, like that is the most important point. Like they would give you hint, and if you are able to grab that, that is most
Then you.
important. Because yeah, so I was able to, like, first when I started my code for the first question, so I was going for different approach than the optimized approach. So in the middle I thought of a better approach, so I changed my code entirely and I wrote it down. So the main thing they are looking for is how I am approaching a problem and how I am solving it. They are not looking that you have to give optimized approach first, then you are only selected. No, that is not the case. They are only looking how we are approaching and how we are covering every edge cases.
And what was the level of questions asked to you?
So I would say like level medium level question if I am doing lead code currently. So I would say medium level lead code questions were asked from.
Yeah, I think this is the common thing in all the exams, like DCs also, this also, and all the exams that are for second year students. I think they ask lead code easy to medium. They don't go hard pay,
Yes.
right? Another very important, as you both mentioned, they ask you to write the code in a Google Docs. So it is very important that a person should know how to write code in an interview, because right, like doing questions on lead code and doing questions in an interview are two very different things, right?
Yes.
एंड
Yes.
समटाइम्स पीपल से कि यार पूरा कोड लिखा था, पूरा सॉल्व भी कर दिया था, फिर भी सेलेक्ट नहीं हुए, है ना?
Yeah.
तो like what was your strategy, or if you have some tips ki just remember these points while you're writing a code in an interview, so what would they be?
So I would say first point would be that you have to communicate with the interviewer. He, she should understand what you are writing. Like when I am writing something, like I am taking a variable, I would tell him or her that
Hmm.
this variable will do this thing in my future code, and he, she would listen because they also have to understand the code. It's not like that I am writing. I am saying that I will make you understand the code at the end. That is not the case. I have to write as well. I have to tell the interviewer my approach, how I am approaching the question. And indentation is also important because some people don't do indentation because as it is Google Docs. But I would recommend that you should code like 10 days before the interview start on Google Docs only. And as there are no auto completion, so you should keep the syntax of the language in mind as well.
Anything that you would
Yeah,
like to add, Nisha?
yeah, just that what I feel that variable names and the function names that you give are important too. Like my second interviewer specifically mentioned that wow, what a nice name to this function. So yeah, it is important. And all in yeah, as Shrishti mentioned, indentation just makes the code more readable. So it is important. Like in docs, what happens is the first letter becomes always automatically becomes capitalized. So that is
Yes.
okay. That the interviewer will automatically ask you that not to like revert it to
Hmm.
small caps or stuff. So it is okay. Yeah, not
Samiksha,
worry
I would
on those
like
lines.
to interrupt you here. I am saying that there is some settings on Google Docs where we can change our preferences. So I researched something and I got to know that I can I can change the settings. So I did that 5 minutes before the interview in the Google
That is
Docs
like
Oh,
the
itself.
extra work you did.
nice.
Yes, yes.
Nice. So my interview basically asked me not to do anything and just leave it
Okay.
as it is. But yes, we have to keep that in
Yeah.
mind. Yeah.
So all of you watching this, please change your docs cut setting before you go for an interview, right? It will really show an interviewer that you have done your homework nicely.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And one more thing I would like to add, that write comments, because generally nobody write comments, right? So I think if you
Yes.
are writing comments, it can set you apart from the rest, because like in
Yeah.
all the interviews that I gave, I try to write comments. So yeah, I think the understands it. Interviewer understands it's better.
Yeah.
The next very important thing is what, like, how did you guys prepare? Like, what was your preparation strategy? Because you were still in your second year. So, what were the resources जहाँ जहाँ से prepare करा था तुम लोगों ने?
Yeah, so beginning from the very start, basically before even coming to the college, because our college basically started in November because of COVID, which was
Yeah.
supposed to start in July. So in November only, I took this DSA course because I was bored because I had nothing to do at home. So I took
We
this
are
DSA
both, so you
course.
will do DSA. I was.
Yeah. Yeah, so I took DSA course. Basically, my senior from school suggested that to take this course. So I took a coding blocks DSA course. So I guess having that course gave me an edge over others because, in a sense, I was over the next few months after completing that 6 month DSA course, I was able to explore all the other fields while continuously practicing DSA. So
Right.
after doing that course, I was into development, not much. I also explored CP and stuff, and regularly did questions on lead code and interview bit. Although there was a gap between where I invested much time in development, but after some time when I knew that tap is coming, I shifted back to DSA. So
Hmm.
what I would suggest from my experience is never stop doing DSA. Like you will feel as if when you will get back to DSA, you will feel that you are lacking somewhere. But if you're continuously practicing it, there won't be and like it would come in flow. So I would say do continue DSA, like just solve one question, but continue with DSA every day. So I practiced on lead code and interview bit as I mentioned, and CP I was doing on what is it, Code Chef and Code Forces. Yeah,
Right.
but not much.
So I also started doing the essay before my college. I sort of did the DSA, but I never practiced the questions. I know the
Hmm.
implementation before the college, but I never practiced questions. So I kind of left it. And after my second semester ending, I got to know that there is a internship for third semester people. So I started my DSA again. I picked my CP again, and I started doing my work. So before the interview, like I knew the timeline from the seniors,
Hmm.
like it is November and December. So I started doing the questions on lead code 4 months earlier, because I know the concepts, but I have to practice also, and I have to keep in mind of everything for a language. So I started doing the lead code 4 months regularly. So yes, practice is the most important part here.
And I think if you do just lead code, I think that is enough for every program. Like,
Yes.
if DSA is asked, then I think lead code is more than enough. You don't have to go to like 10 resources. But lead code kar
Yeah.
lo, I think that is enough.
But
Yeah.
there is a drawback about lead code, that it has so many questions, like
Yes.
1,000 plus questions. So we have to come up with quality questions that would give us
Mhm.
edge in a
Right.
particular topic.
Right. There's this sheet, I think lead code 100 interview questions, I think.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I've
yeah, yeah.
then coming to the second interview. So can you share like what was the duration of the second interview and like what was it, technical, non-technical, and what was asked?
The second interview was also technical, solely based on DSA. So in my second interview, the duration was 45 minutes as that of the first.
Hmm.
And it was also technical round, solely based on DSA only. We started with our introduction. And in this interview, I was asked only one question, and I consider it more of a hard than that of a medium question. Like
Okay.
if I have to put the question on the scale. So I would say that it was pretty much closer to hard, because in 45 minutes I have to solve only one question with no follow-ups. So
Hmm.
first I read the question, so I was blank. That was my reactions. I thought how I am going to do this. So but I picked up, I started asking question to the interviewer. Like I
Right.
was reading a line, I was asking a question, that how this is and how I would do that. So she was very helpful, and she was making me understand so our first step should be that we have to understand the question clearly, like it should be crystal clear in your mind. Then only I can provide with the most optimized approach. Okay, so in first 10 minutes I was understanding the question, like I have to do this, and there would be these edge cases. 20 minutes I wrote a code, but I stopped in the middle because I was thinking of another approach. Okay, so in last 15 minutes, so she said to me that you can take 5 to 10 minutes more, but I was able to write the code, my most optimized approach that I came up while writing the
Hmm.
code firstly. So I wrote that code in the 15 minutes of timeline, and I was making her understand that what I am doing while writing the code, and keeping in mind the indentation as well, and the variable names, that they should hold a meaning if I am reading a variable. So that was all, and I asked her a question. We were communicating very.
I think in
That's
the
all.
last, asking a question is very important. Like the interview should know that you are also interested in the that particular internship.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, my in the second interview, I was asked questions about my resume. As in, they do have a resume, so if it interests them or something interests them, they only ask the question then.
Hmm.
So I had this internship, a Flutter development internship, about an app which helps in connecting mentors to mentees. So basically, he asked the question along those lines as to how did you implement it. Like it really interested him, and he was like, "Ki, how did you match mentors to mentees?" So I was like, "Ki, I worked on the app part of it and not the web utility, but I did know about the logic that went into web utility." So I told him. So he was like like very interested in that, and we talked on 10 minutes about that only. So
Right.
after the interview, so after this question, so he was like, "Yeah, I have couple of questions. Like I will keep just like we will just answer them as quickly as you can, and we will just quickly move from one question to another." So the first question, all the questions were on based on string. So first question, I was like he dropped the first question, and I came up with the approach as soon as possible. I can like as in 5 minutes. But I was like, I came up with this approach this fast, so there must be another approach that is much optimized than that.
Yeah.
So he was like, yeah, I understand your point, but you can just code it right now. It is good enough. So I coded it. But then in between, I also came up with another approach. So I also discussed that with him. So after that approach, he said, yeah, go ahead and code another approach also. So the first question, I coded two approaches, just differing from from n log n, I brought it down to order of n. So yeah, all this took about 20 or 25 minutes. So he was like, yeah, I do have another question. It was a follow-up question. So but since we don't have much time, although they were 10 minutes, but he was like, I don't want to take take much of your time or stuff. So just give me the approach of this question and don't code it. So for the next question, I just gave him the approach and he said, okay, cool. And then asked me to ask a question to him apart from the interview.
So for you also, it was lead code hard level question or it was easy to medium?
I would say the follow-up questions was on the line verge of hard questions. The first question I felt was medium level.
Medium level, right? Okay.
Yeah.
And for both of you, there's one common thing that you guys have not seen the questions before. Like you guys saw the question in an interview and like got an approach there itself with the help of an interviewer. So yeah, it is not like only if you know a question will you be get selected in an
Mhm.
interview. Yeah. So these were all the questions. Then one more very interesting. I think these were all the steps, right? Like apart from that, there are no
Yeah.
steps.
Yeah, yeah.
After,
Yeah.
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 Go
There's
ahead.
this one thing that after two interviews, if they still want that, if they're not able to judge you on the basis of those two interviews, they can still like hold a third interview later
Yeah.
on later date.
Later. I think for telephonic round also you mentioned that it can be one or two, I think, depending on what the interviewer wants, right? Or like
Yeah.
Yeah.
what they. So after how much time did you get the final results? Like,
I guess
Like,
Shrishti had an interview a week before mine.
yeah, yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So yeah, so for Shrishti it was 2 weeks, and for me it was just 1 week.
Yeah.
We
Wow.
got our results together. So yeah,
Okay, basic. Everybody gets it to like.
one college, one day. Yeah.
That is really great. Apart from that, like, what are the perks of this internship?
As we have not started our internship yet, so I would say the training part is the most important, because we would get to work with a Googler on some project, and that would be the most important perk of
Right.
this internship.
Yeah, that is great. Apart from that, is there any stipend involved or something?
Yeah,
Yeah,
there
we
is a
do
step.
get.
That is really great, Srishti and Samiksha. Thank you so much for doing it. I hope it helps a lot of girls who are planning to apply it next year. Yeah, thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah,
Thank you so
thank
much
you.
for having us.